Welcome to my YouTube channel. For now, we're going to call it the Data Gym until we can come up with a different name. Anyways, thank you so much for liking my videos. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting. We got to 500 subscribers within a month, and that is attributed to all of you who comment, like, and subscribe. And I appreciate you. I'm going to continue to do this. So if you guys continue to show me what charts and stuff that you guys are really interested in, I would be happy to go over those charts and tell you what the charts are telling to me. So basically, I'm just going to read the charts for you and I'll let you decide on how to proceed with the information that you gather from it. The first stock I'm going to go over is XLF, and then I'm going to go over IREN and then ASTS. I will note that, or I want you to note that ASTS and IREN can be extremely volatile. So the levels can hit, but sometimes they'll pierce through levels more rapidly than most other stocks. Once you get some momentum in these particular stocks, they can really run either to the upside or downside. Now, first one I'm going to go over is XLF. I want you to notice how strong this resistance level is on XLF. So this is the financial select sector SPF fund. This is a trend line that goes back to 2015. And the reason I mention that is the longer a trend line is extended, the more support and resistance it has, the stronger this particular trend line is. Notice it was support. Once it got underneath support, it hit on the 17th of February, got a decent pullback. And then it finally broke above, but the rejection was, the support, the resistance trend line was so strong that it pushed price action down. And then it actually fell quite nicely in 2018, got a little bit of a bid, and then finally tagged it a couple different times, got rejected. Now, what's happened? 2024 got rejected again. 2025, now it is starting to continue that push on the downside, solidifying the fact that this is, because it's such a long-term up-sloping trend line, that this is still a lot of resistance. What am I looking for in the charts now? I'm looking for a support level that, if it breaks, can further show us where the downside move is likely to happen. So if I zoom in on the charts on XLF, I've got this low pivot from the 23rd of October of 2023. And then you have this price action right here that happened. This was kind of a fluke. So I don't really give this as much weighting. And the reason I call this a fluke is because all the markets fell on the 4th of April. This is still a support level on XLF. Look at how price action stayed inside of this nice wedge pattern, finally broke. And what I've mentioned in previous videos is I actually look for retraces of the scene of the crime. So once you get price action to finally break and confirm below, then you can retrace it. It fell again, and then it retraced to the scene of the crime for a second time. This is telling me that the chart is indicating that there's further selling pressure likely to happen in XLF. What we're looking for is the next support level. So the next support level on XLF is going to be $50.80. If price action fails to bounce at this level, it's likely coming back down into this gap fill at $48.79. And then it can hit, if it continues, with the selling pressure, $45.58. From the pivot high, had you entered the short here, that's about a 15% fall on a financial select sector SPF fund on XLF. So basically, this is the financial sectors for the S&P 500. If we start to get a sell-off, we're not only going to see a sell-off in XLF, but the rest of the markets should start to follow the downtrend or the down move in this sector. Great chart. I love it. If we do continue to fall, though, that's the caveat. First pivot level, $50.80, $48.76, and then this gap fill at $45.61. IREN is next. Look at this stock. I had this gap fill on the charts that goes all the way down to $41.68. It did look like it was going to get below that. However, it did catch a bid. My next target on IREN and I'm kind of jumping ahead on this, was going to be $48.97. So let me go ahead and back up on the charts real quick. I'm going to jump back and tell you and show you how the volatility in IREN can be. So you had this price action on the basically July 2025. Nice bullish consolidation, basically sideways consolidation, and then this big up move. And then all of a sudden, it took off. Finally created this secondary pivot where we've connected this first pivot, and this is the secondary pivot. Price action then, if we can get a nice move to the upside, could hit around $100. I'm not saying to go long into IREN and continue to purchase it all the way up to $100. I'm just mentioning that this is would be the third hit of an upsloping trend line, and so that's where price action could likely happen or head up to. We have a lot of resistance that IREN has to get through in order for that to happen. So this is why I'm mentioning this. The first level of resistance was $48.97. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. This is this wide range red bar candle. Now that we're above this in the post market, your next level of resistance is going to be $55.70. So if you are shorting this on a day trading basis, $55.70 is where you could short it and take probably about 4 or 5% as far as a pullback goes at this particular level. If we continue higher, then your next level of resistance is going to be this previous gap fill in the charts at $58.22. That is where price action will likely get another pullback. If price action can then consolidate right in this area, then you can start moving higher. So what are we looking for a continuation move to the upside? Same thing, the opposite of what's happening with XLF. What we want to do is we actually want to identify down-sloping trend lines. Right now, we're still in a downtrend. As you can see, we came up from $76 all the way down to $39.61, 51% drop to the downside. So what we need to do is create down-sloping trend lines. We take this high pivot point from the 6th of November, secondary pivot right here from the 20th of November, and this gives us our next resistance level. You notice how well this lines up with this previous pivot or this red bar candle. This shows you that there's a lot of resistance at this particular trend line. So once price action gets above it and then retraces to the scene of the crime, let's say we can get above it, close above, and continue above it, then you'd want to play a retrace, probably back down to about $45, $44, and then you could go long. And the beautiful thing about going long on a retrace is it minimizes your risk. If price action does get below $40 again, it's likely to head lower. So that's my chart analysis on IREN. Right now, we're still technically in a downtrend. We need this downsloping trend line to break, and then we can get a nice move to the upside. Overall, I still like the chart for a long position. And the reason is, look at the volatility. So now I'm going to switch gears and go into the relative strength index. I was mentioning how chart behaved previously, how it got into a gap fill. Now I'm going to go over what the relative strength index is indicating to me. Right now, we still have a really strong stock in IREN, dropping 50% from the highs. That means there are likely to be a lot of buyers. Also, what I'm noticing is the relative strength index. When I look at the RSI, I like to look at stocks that have a lot of volatility, and IREN is one of those stocks. So now that we're starting to push up again on the relative strength index, this is indicating now buyers are continuing to step in. And so what I'm looking for is the RSI to then establish itself above the 50, consolidate a little bit more sideways, and then we can get another push to the upside. If we fail to get above the 50 on IREN, that means the selling pressure is a little bit too strong and it's likely to push the RSI down to 30, which then would drop the price of IREN likely back down to around the $33 or $34 level, and could even come down and fill this gap at $26.15 or even this gap at $23.15. There's a lot of stuff that's going on with IREN. Right now, if we can break this down-sloping trend line, though, I think we could turn up on this particular stock. ASTS is another stock that can really move as well. In a previous video, I had mentioned that we could go down as low as $49.08. And the reason I targeted $49.08 is you had a gap in the charts. This is where price action ended up heading, from $103 down to $49, similar to what's going on with IREN. You get this overextended moves to the upside. You have some profit takers. You get a little bit of fear in the market that drives the price down. Once you get so beaten up, there are people who are waiting in the sidelines thinking this is the deal of a lifetime. We can scoop this up for 50% off, and then boom, right back to the upside. What are we monitoring on ASTS? Same price action. We need this down sloping trend line to break. So what I've done is I've actually connected this pivot top from the 16th of October and connected it with this 12th of November pivot, drawn a trend line, and look at where price got rejected right on this trend line. If price action can continue to hammer on this down sloping trend line with price action staying above this support gap fill, then it's likely to break above this. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to buy. We're going to wait for a retrace to the scene of the crime, and then we're going to play this to the upside, and you could get it up to $83. Another thing I was monitoring on ASTS is the RSI. The nice thing about the RSI on ASTS is it got really close to the 30, indicating that now there was too much selling pressure, and it allowed all the sellers to get out of the way for buyers to step in and drive the price up. Overall, I am more bullish on ASTS than I am bearish, especially if we can stay above the $49.08 level. I would love to pick it up at this particular level. We still need a little bit more confirmation. We still need that down sloping trend line to break, and then we would play it on a retrace unless we can again pick it up at $49.08. On a daily closing basis, I would go ahead and stop out, because you have a secondary gap fill at $45, and then look at this gap fill. It's not a big gap fill, but it's still a gap in the charts at $38.93 is where ASTS could go if the selling pressure continues to build in this thing. Again, thank you so much for liking, subscribing, following, and most importantly, commenting and giving me the charts that you guys are interested, so that way I can provide you with as much information in these charts as I can, or at least what I'm seeing. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time in the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.